Welcome everybody to the Arabic Summer Institute for the Immersion Schools by QFI. My name is Omar Tarabishi. I'm the Program Officer at QFI for Arabic Language Programs. I have a couple co-presenters here with me today, some of our consultants that you may have known and come across in the past years with QFI. We have Don Samples, we have Myriam Met, and we have Nagla Al-Badawi here as well. Thank you so much for being here, and we're so excited to get started with a virtual ASI this summer. Of course, we would love to be together in person with different circumstances, but given COVID, we thought this is the best way forward. It's amazing and it's lovely to see your faces. You know, we had a small get together in January with some teachers who could make it at Ames in Houston. It was really nice to meet everyone and see everyone. And we're hoping, inshallah, fil mustaqbal, we'll be able to get together again for future ASIs and for future trainings. I wanted to start off by commending all of our teachers on doing such a fantastic job with the 2019 to 2020 school year. I mean, what a challenge. And, you know, given the circumstances and the way that teachers had to adapt and, you know, think on their feet and really, you know, think outside the box with, especially in the immersion setting, given, you know, the challenges of online learning and distance learning and having to get up and learn Zoom and Google Classroom and a whole bunch of different technology, different softwares to entertain your students and to educate your students. I just wanted to give a short commendation to all of the teachers and teachers here and teachers elsewhere all over the world. Honestly, like a really fantastic job wrapping up the 2019 and 2020 year. I wanted to start by just setting some expectations for this week of live sessions, and maybe going through the schedule a little bit just so you know what to expect. So from Monday through Friday of this week, we're hoping to have 2 live sessions a day. The first one will be an AM session, that's 11 a.m. Eastern. Sorry for those of you on the Pacific Coast, it's a little bit early, 8 a.m. And then we would be following up with a PM session, that's 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And between those 2 sessions, there's an optional virtual office hours session. So that'll be a Zoom session that's attended by Mimi and Don and Nagla, an opportunity for you to maybe come to them with some questions that you might have had from asynchronous sessions or something that's come up in some of the live sessions that you'll be attending this week. You know, they're there for you. They're there to answer any questions that you might have. That'll be from 12:45 Eastern to 1:45 Eastern, Monday through Friday. So those will be the virtual office hours, and we hope you attend those. We hope you take advantage of having them for you. Oh, Maria, if you don't mind, could you mute your mic? I think I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Shukran. I wanted to also let you know that I'm available here, email, if you want to private chat me in the Zoom session. If you have any technological problems, if you have any questions, if you're not sure about the schedule, what's coming up next, if there's anything that you need to do on your end, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help out. I want to make sure everyone's on the same page, that we all understand what's going to be going on for this summer. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you don't mind, it would just make it a little bit easier for presenters and myself to just edit your name. So I think if you go to your picture or your name in the little boxes and you hit the dot sign, you should be able to rename yourself. So just maybe your first and last name, it'll just make it easier for us to, you know, if we are doing breakout sessions, to put people into different breakout sessions. We have, I think, Amal, we'll just have your first name if you don't mind tagging that on. I know there was an iPhone 6 that joined earlier. I think that changed now, but that'll just make it easier for all of us just to get everyone organized and put into the breakout sessions. I know that Dawn will be doing that a little bit later today. Without further ado, I just want to do a small introduction and thank you all for being here, of course. Today's presenter is Dr. Myriam Met. In her career as an educator, Dr. Myriam Met has been a foreign language teacher, a district supervisor, an acting director for the National Foreign Language Center at the University of Maryland. That's my alma mater. She is a nationally and internationally recognized dual language immersion DLI educator. She's been consulting with schools, with districts, state offices, universities, and also private agencies on strategic planning and support for immersion programs. Many of you here attending know her. You've met her before. And on a personal note, she's really helped in setting up this virtual ASI for 2020. So thank you so much, Mimi. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I'm going to try to share my screen. And while I'm sharing my screen, um, can you see my screen now? Are you seeing, are
Yep,
you seeing my screen, Dawn?
perfect.
Okay. I should tell you that what Omar just told you about me isn't exactly what I sent him. I sent him a biography of my work life that began with Mimi Met has always wanted to be a good teacher, but we don't always get what we want from life. And then I went on to explain how the reason I got to be a supervisor is I figured out it was easier to tell other people what to do than to try to do it well myself. So, Omar, next time you introduce me, you might tell them the real story. So I'm glad to be back with everybody because I miss you. Um, our Summer Institute has always been the highlight of my summer because it's so wonderful to work with such hardworking, dedicated, committed teachers and who really care about doing a good job for their kids. So I am so happy to see you all and to be here with you and to be able to respond to the things you asked to talk about and ask questions about. So let me just tell you a little bit about how we're going to work today. So first, I want to give you a plan. You've had a welcome from Omar, and um, we're going to talk a little bit about the flipped classroom, and I'll define what that is for you, and some of you may already know, and I apologize if I'm telling you things you already know, but I thought it would be helpful for setting the stage about the things that you asked to discuss when you filled out your reflections forms on the modules that you participated in, and also the questions that you might have. So we're going to have two discussion rounds. We asked you to sign in, and the reason that you signed in with your grade level is that you are going to be going to a Zoom room based on the grade levels that you teach, so that it can be the conversations can be as close as possible to the kinds of students you work with and the contexts that you have to consider when you're planning and delivering instruction. So we're going to go over the modeling cycle because that was a question that many of you raised, either wanting to know more about it or just to discuss with your peers. So that's what you're going to get to do. And then we'll have a second Zoom room discussion in the same rooms because again, these are grade level specific conversations about student engagement. And those of you who've been teaching online know that teaching online is quite a different challenge from keeping students engaged and active and participatory from trying to do it in a face-to-face setting. So we're going to have some conversations around that. When you go to your Zoom rooms, we're also going to give you a link just before you go to your room to pull up the slides with the resources for those discussions and conversations. And then we'll all come back together at the end to talk about what the upcoming sessions are for the rest of today and the rest of the week, and a few reminders about how we can make this the best possible opportunity for you. Don and Nigla and Omar and I have been working really hard because what we want to do is help you be as successful and effective as you want to be. So it's our job to help you do your job. So I'm a little worried about whether I'm going to be able to help you enough, but here we go. We're going to get started. So here are some reminders. First of all, if you didn't already see the link on the chat list to sign in to get a Zoom room assignment and to let us know you're here, please do that. You'll get your Zoom room assignment later, but we can't do that until everybody has signed in. We also wanted to remind you that between the morning live session and the afternoon session, we are here to answer the questions that you have. whether it's something that's based on the live session that you attend or the modules that you reviewed or any other question. We are here for you. So you may want to pull up your reflection sheet at some point and look at the questions that you wrote down, things that you want to talk about or know the answer to. If you don't get the answer in your discussion group, please come and talk to us. That's what we're here for. I'm going to show you a slide that you're probably going to see in many of the live sessions you attend about how to conduct, what kinds of expectations make these online sessions work most effectively. And towards the end of this conversation, after the talk about the flipped classroom, watch in the chat room for the links to go to the resources that you will need to click on before you go to your Zoom rooms. Okay, so you may have seen these before. One is mute your microphone, because if you sneeze, we all hear it. If your dog comes in or is very unhappy about somebody walking in front of your house, we'll all hear it. So please mute your mic in this session unless you need to ask a question. Then you can unmute your mic and ask it. Or when you get to your Zoom rooms, unmute your mic, because those are discussion groups and you will all have opportunities to talk to one another. So we want you to unmute in the Zoom rooms. The hardest thing about being in a Zoom room, and I know this because I'm on Zoom almost 3/4 of every day of the week, is to stay completely engaged and participatory. It's very intense paying attention. We're going to ask that to the extent you can really be present, engage your intention and participate, especially in the discussions. We need you to be part of that group. I know that this is a group where you will be respectful of each other's contributions and opinions. And if you have a question, don't forget to ask it. So I want to begin by talking about the flipped classroom. If you've heard this term before, let me see, I can't see all of you, but Dawn, can you switch to your all gallery view so you can tell me how many people are raising their hand to say they've heard the term before? Please go to the reactions button on the bottom of your Zoom screen and raise your hand. It will appear on your screen with your hand raised to tell us whether you've heard this term. If you've heard this term, raise your hand. Or you can give a thumbs up if you've heard it, or a thumbs down if you have not. I think that might be better. Oh, good. So I see Ralia, thumbs up. Bayan, thumbs up, thumbs down. Yay, okay. Dawn, how many people look like they know quite a bit about this? You're muted, Dawn.
There we go. It looked to be 8 to 10 people.
Okay, so about half.
Between all the ones I could see.
Well, I apologize to those of you who know it already, and to those who don't know it, I apologize to you too, because I'm going to go a little faster. So the flipped classroom is different in the sense that in a regular classroom, we do the direct instruction while the students are with us, and then they go home and they follow up in some way to what they've been taught in the classroom. So the classroom is the primary learning place, and home is the place where you either follow up on something or sometimes even prepare for the next day. In the flipped classroom, the students do a lot of preparation before they come to class. And I'm going to give you some very specific examples in just a minute. So hang in there with me. During class, they practice using what they prepared before they come to us. So a lot of the practice, which is what our kids need, especially when we're talking about Arabic, because for some of our kiddos, the only place where they hear and use Arabic is at school. So during class, they're doing things, they're actively engaged, they're participating. And when they go home, they check their understanding of what they learned in the preparation and during the application section, and extend their learning beyond what they've already done. So let's take a little bit of a look at what that might look like in our classroom and why we would want to do it. One reason is that for our students who who have to do the online learning, they can work at their own pace, whether they're viewing a video or reading a piece of text or actually creating something in preparation for an online session. I can't tell you how many classrooms I've been in when we've asked kids to do something, and then ask them to bring what they've prepared to the rug, and there's always a bunch of kids who aren't done yet, and some because they will not let go of a picture until it's good enough to hang in a museum, while other kids, they just scrawl something and they're ready to go. So the biggest advantage to the flipped classroom is giving kids a self-paced opportunity to do the work and to do the thinking. Now, you don't have to flip your whole classroom. So you could flip instruction for a single lesson, maybe for a topic that lends itself particularly well, or even just for small group tutorials for youngsters who are ready to move ahead before everyone else, or who need special help. So that's another way of looking at the flipped classroom. And it gives you as the teacher, even in a remote environment, an opportunity to differentiate for students who learn at a different rate or who have different ways and preferred ways of learning. So before you have an online session, and I have to confess that I am going to spend most of our time together putting the things that you read online in the modules prior to today into the context of remote instruction, since so many of you are going to be engaged in that for the foreseeable future. But I want to just tell you one thing. Anything that you can do successfully online, you can also do in face-to-face instruction. Good teaching online mirrors good teaching in the classroom, whereas many things that you can do in face-to-face instruction don't always transfer easily to the remote learning context. So don't think this is just about remote learning. When you eventually come back to face-to-face school, we're still going to be able to use these strategies. So one of the things that kids can do in the flipped classroom is before they come to class, you might have already prepared a PowerPoint presentation. You may already know, I'm sure you do, based on last spring, that you can insert audio into your PowerPoints. So students can click through them. They can listen to your audio again and again while watching the screen. Some of you may prefer to turn your PowerPoint presentation into a video, and all of those are tools that are built right into PowerPoint, the application. I particularly like the PowerPoint with teacher voiceover, but not making into a video, because that allows students more opportunities to be self-paced and to go back and forward more easily. You can make a brief video of yourself, even just using your iPhone. And you could take a video that you already have seen online. I know, Rawia, you mentioned you went to science training last week. One of the things I know is that there are a lot of really good science videos out there that are really simple, but they're in English. If you do a voiceover of an existing video, add your own voice to an existing video. So you mute the existing video and you do a voiceover in Arabic. You can choose the challenge level of the wording. You can choose the important words to emphasize. you can make that video actually a better tool for your students by adjusting it to their ability to understand the lesson that you're delivering, instead of sending them home to watch it in English and then discuss it in class in Arabic, which is very difficult for kids to do. Everything you do in a classroom, whether it's face-to-face or online, should be interesting and visually supported in a second language context. Everything should always be interesting, because we already know if it's not interesting, kids get bored. And you know, when kids are bored, they will not pay attention. And kids who don't pay attention do not learn. And I've said that so many times, I'm not going to say it again today. But kids can also, I know not all of you teach kindergarten and first grade, and you have students who can read in Arabic now. So give them a chance to do some reading at home, a text that is at their level, not something that's too hard to read, but something that you can be pretty sure that they can all read. They can even read texts written by their peers, and some of your students can write something and then share it digitally through a variety of mechanisms that we can talk about in our drop-in hours. But the text can be something that's pre-printed commercially. It can be a text that you have written. It can be a text that their classmate has written. I know that one of the things we used to do with our youngest readers was write a class story, and then every student took a copy of that home and they would read it at home to themselves or to their parents. And before an online lesson, you can let kids create. They can think about you could tell them a question that you're going to ask them when they come to their Zoom lesson. You can tell them a topic that you're going to address, and you can ask them to list all the words that they think they're going to need to talk about that or to answer the question. If you think that they should be able to do more than that, let them write key phrases. These are more of scaffolds and supports. Oh, I forgot what I wanted to say, or I forgot the phrase I wanted to use. They can even write sentences that can become supports for oral participation when they're online. So maybe you don't let them write out everything if they're in the upper grades, because you don't want them to just be reading from a script. You want them to come in and have a spontaneous conversation. But if they have a list of key words on the topic, it's easier for them to be more understandable and fluent as they work with their friends. Also finding pictures that illustrate the concepts that they've been learning. They bring that to the Zoom session and they can show their picture and either talk about it, or the group can look at it and name things that are related to the language and the content that you want them to be working on. One of the things that students can also do is create their own videos. So they may have a math problem that they're going to solve at home, or they solved in class with you together, and then they can use even a smartphone to video themselves explaining how they got their answer. And then they're prepared to come in and share that in your Zoom class. So many of these ideas are things that are adapted from your face-to-face class. We want students to talk to each other all the time, as much as possible. I know some of you are tired of hearing me say student to students need to face interactions. If you can do it via FaceTime or using smartphones, that can either be a preparation or a follow-up, or in many cases, both. You can give kids a menu to choose from of what they learned during the Zoom lesson. You can let them, you know what partner reading is, I think, when two students are paired together and read aloud to one another and take turns reading. You can give them a graphic organizer into which they write keywords, phrases, or sentences. You just saw that idea in the before. It can also be in the after. One of the other ways you can use a graphic organizer is if before they came in, they completed keywords in a graphic organizer, they add to it during the Zoom lesson, and then they go home and write a longer piece of text using the vocabulary and sentence frames and ideas that they heard in the Zoom room. They can also create flashcards to test one another, to write questions or math problems, or even other kinds of things that in the past you might have used a worksheet for. Let the students create something that they help each other learn from by practicing the information instead of you creating a worksheet. And the idea that I've already just mentioned, let students create. They can, many of the kids already can do PowerPoints, and those who can't can draw a picture, they can find a picture online. The big idea on the flipped classroom is that we're going to extend the Arabic learning time by giving kids things to do before and after the Zoom session. So before you go to the next round, it is now, oh good, 11:34. I was aiming to be done by 11:30. So Dawn is going to put up in the chat box your link to the participant folder, in which you will find a file that says resources for Zoom rooms. There are 2 Zoom rooms with 2 separate sets of slides. One is on the modeling cycle, which we're going to do in the first Zoom room. And then for the second Zoom room conversation, there's a set of slides on student engagement. I'm trying to think. Oh, we will give you reminders of when it is time, how much time you have left in your Zoom room discussion. So you'll have half an hour for the first and half an hour for the second. Be sure everybody participates. And then if you have any questions, be sure to bring them with you to the last group. We'll probably only do 20 to 25 minutes because we have to have about a 15-minute closure. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen because you're going to get your Zoom room assignments and be sent to the Zoom room. So I will be dropping in as we go along.
So you guys, I'm about to send you to Zoom rooms. There are 2 of you that are not showing up as eligible for me to push into Zoom rooms. So I'm hoping after I push everyone out that it will let me drag you into a Zoom room. So Rola and Caroline, you were in a Zoom room and all of a sudden you're not in the Zoom room anymore and you're not showing up in here. So you 2 may end up staying in the general area with me until I can drag you in. Everyone else, I think you're in good shape. So I'm about to open all the rooms. Just as a heads up, Mimi and I will be giving you little notices from time to time about how much time you have left or if there's something you need to think about. And so that will pop up as a little box in your Zoom room. At a given point, I'm going to say, I'm bringing you back and I'm closing the Zoom rooms. It's going to take you back automatically. You don't have to do anything, but just know that when I do that, you have 1 minute left to wrap up your conversation and then it's going to yank you back on its own. Okay. So just be prepared when you see that one. Know you've got 60 seconds left. All right, you guys, I'm sending you off into Zoom rooms. Have fun. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure.
All right. So I hope you found your group conversations helpful, especially in terms of anything that came up in the online modules that you looked at the last 2 weeks. Rawi, are you okay? Oh, you looked, I wasn't sure. That there were, if you had any questions that you submitted or that you want to have answered, remember that we have drop-in hours right after this. So here are some reminders. The next live session is with Nigla at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and you have a link to that on your schedule. As I mentioned to the last group I was with, I think that was first and second grade teachers, Don and I talked about scheduling one of the drop-in hours, making it specifically for questions about how to use certain technologies or which technologies to use, and hopefully to practice using them so that people felt comfortable trying to do that when they're with their kids. It would also be helpful if you think about what would you like to be able to do more effectively as a dual language teacher in Arabic. And maybe it would be helpful if you made a couple of notes about what that was, so that when you begin to attend the other live sessions, you'll be keeping an ear and eye out for answers to things about how can I do this another way. So our next hour, beginning at 12:45 East Coast time, is drop-in office hours. Nigla will be there, Don will be there, I'll be there. So grab your lunch, or if it's too early for lunch, although really it's never too early for lunch for me, or grab a snack and then join us for a conversation and question and answers. You may also want to consult the questions that you wrote on your reflections sheets, or questions that have come out based on what we've been doing until now. And if you have a request for a focus for tomorrow's drop-in hours that you'd like us to be prepared to address, be sure to let us know through chat or through an email if necessary. So I wanted to leave you with this thought. This was just the beginning of our week-long sessions. And every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. So keep that in mind as we go forward, and we will see you, at least some of you, at 12:45 and the others at 2. And that is the end of our first session.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Mimi.
You guys, I just wanted you to know, so you had, when I was popping from room to room, I was telling you that there were links to documents where you can share resources. In your participant folder, there's a folder for you for each grade level where you can share resources, or if all you have to share are links, there's a document that you can go in and just post those links to. Okay, so I just put, if you look in the chat, there's a link to the resources and materials, and there's also a link to like the daily table of contents, where if we have to put announcements or put reminders or things like that in there, just not to lose, that's there too. So just want to make sure everybody saw those before you leave. Go ahead and click on them and then save them so you don't lose them. Okay. All righty.
Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you at 12:45 virtual office hours if you drop in. If not, we'll see you at 2 p.m. for the next session